Truth is, we have Steve Jobs to thank for this entire technological and emotional experience. You see, young people don't always know where life is going to take them. Funny, isn't it? Because it's been that way since time immemorial. This is true. During a time long, long ago, for a man we had never met. And this was true for a group of 6 Canyon Ridge High School students. Our crazy principal, Mr. Ogren, and 2 even crazier teachers, Mr. Romero and Mr. Hoffman. When these 3 educators asked us to interview one of America's greatest resources, Adolph Kuhn. The car ride from Hesperia to Oceanside was definitely long, but the food at Denny's restaurant made it all worthwhile. Oh, and meeting Mr. Adolph Kuhn, a Pearl Harbor survivor and member of the greatest generation, was worth it too.
My name is heaven. My name is hell. My name is good. My name is bad. My name.
End of World War II, and I wrote 4 books, which Tim probably told you about, and I have no complaints. I'm the luckiest guy.
Could you tell them outside of the war what happened to you about a month ago? You said you were in the hospital. Tell them what happened.
Yeah.
If you don't mind.
In my sleep, about a month ago, in my sleep, I woke up and went, instead of taking a pill, that 1 pill a day, I took the pills for the whole week, and it poisoned my system. And my son found me in the bathroom on the floor, you know. He rushed me to the hospital and pumped me out and all this and that. So now I'm very careful what I take. No, I've had an exciting life. I'm 94 years old.
What, for the waterfall?
I want to put it like videotaping.
The flag release? You're gonna put it on the thing so we can. Here. Okay. You got it. Where's the GoPro things? Can you get the screw that right here?
So, Mr. Kuhn, can you tell me about your wife, Elsie Rogers?
Yes, I can, and I will. She was born in Ripon, California. It's a little town between Modesto and Stockton. And we've been married 63 years.
Whoa.
We never went to bed mad at each other. If we had any problems, we talked them over so we could both get a good night's sleep. And how I met her, when I came in from overseas, and a lady at Pearl Harbor who was working in the fabric and dope shop said, Adolph, we're going to have a party about you in Modesto, California, and we want you to be there. So I said, okay, I'll try my best. So anyway, when I got there, they were already sitting in there. And when I opened the door, I was in my Navy chief uniform, and I opened the door up, and on the far wall was my wife Elsie and her mother sitting there, only I didn't know them and they didn't know me. And I saw her nudging my wife like her nudging her mother like that, and her mother said, "What?" She said to her mother, "I'm going to marry that man."
Oh.
And lo and behold, we were married. We were married, and we stayed together 63 years.
It's a very long time.
And like I said, never went to bed mad and all that. And the rest of then I wrote the 4 books, you know. And what else you want to know?
So, coming from that, what would you say to our generation about relationship-wise, since you and your wife had such a close relationship?
Always be true to each other. Always tell the truth, because the lies are going to leak out someday and get you. So make sure.
And was your wife very supportive with everything that you were doing, that you had going on?
She was very supportive, yeah. She would be, while we were traveling across country from one state to the other in museums, she was looking at the map and she said, 7 miles ahead there's a veterans organization, and we'd stop, we'd take in everything, you know, and take pictures and all this and that, and she was very supportive, you know.
That's amazing. That really is.
Yeah, like I say, we never went to bed mad.
You know my name. You know my name. You know my name. My name is love. My name is love. All the above. My name is love. Sent from above.
I'm 94 now, and all the rest is history.
So, do you have any regrets from anything that's
Not
happened?
a bit, one bit. No. I've had an exciting life, went through a lot of dangerous things, and I saw the first Japanese plane come in. I was on my way to church in Honolulu, my cousin and I, and we never made it to Honolulu because the Japanese planes came in, and I saw the first bombs drop, I saw the first torpedoes drop, I saw the first of everything, and I saw the last of everything. I was there till the end. So that's why I wrote 4 books. This is one of them. There's four different kinds that I wrote, and they're in the libraries. And
So, Mr. Kuhn, can you tell me about your spirituality and what your beliefs are and how that has affected you?
I was born in the wheat fields of Kansas as a Catholic. All my family members around there were all Catholic, belonged to the Liebenthal Catholic Church, and all my relatives are buried on the Liebenthal, Kansas cemetery. And that was our whole life there. So.
Did you have like a guardian angel?
Oh yes, I believe in guardian angels. My guardian angel is with me everywhere I go. And there's not a night that I go to bed that I don't thank the good Lord and the guardian angels for seeing me through all these horrendous experiences that I went through. I had 19 close calls, didn't get one scratch. Some of the poor sailors got their heads blown off. I was walking through the officers' golf course, and a Japanese plane came and it cut the guy's head off, and it was laying in the grass, and his body is laying there, and his body is shivering, and I said a prayer for him and went on, and I tried to make my way down to my boat landing to catch a ferry boat to go across the Pearl Harbor Channel to my Navy base at Fort Island Naval Air Station. And when I got there, 7 other guys were standing there also waiting for that boat, and nothing happened, and nobody around, and far off in the distance I saw a little tiny boat put outside, and nobody knew what it. We waved and all that, but he didn't see us, and hollering for him, it was no good because there was so much noise. And all of a sudden, just like if somebody tapped you on the shoulder, and when I went like this, the guy nodded his head, and you know that he got my message, and he turned and he came in, and you know who it was?
Who was it?
A Japanese fisherman.
Wow.
So here we are going to be at war with Japan, and I had a Japanese fisherman deliver me to my Navy base. Is that something?
Yes.
That's a true story. Yeah. So everybody teased me about that. Here we are at war with Japan, and you're having him as your chauffeur. True story. And he walked up to the officer and he said, "Touch me, sir." And everybody around him said, "Touch me, sir." So the officer reached over and touched those 7 hash marks. Now tonight, when you get back to your barracks, you sit down and write your mommy a letter, not mother. Write your mommy a letter and say, "Mommy, today I touched a real sailor." And the guy stormed off of the stage, and from that day on, every time he saw me and Mac, and the place he went in another direction. He avoided us like the plague. True story. Now,
Now, we can turn the lights down, right? They don't have to be too bright, right?
Yeah. 25%.
Okay.
25%, that's it. This one has a ground on it.
Adolph Kuhn's guardian angels worked overtime that day.
Hi, my name is Alyssa Walton. We are here in Oceanside, California to interview a true American war hero who survived Pearl Harbor, Mr. Adolph Kuhn. So, Adolph, if you don't mind me calling you that.
Oh.
Okay, so how did you end up getting into the Navy? Like what led you to that decision?
I graduated from La Crosse, Kansas High School in 1940, and I had made up my mind 5 days later I joined the Navy, you know, and my mother was totally against it, but my dad said, "Well, if that's what you want," I said, "I've spent 18 years on the farm, it's time to get off of there and do something different." And I took my training at Great Lakes, Illinois, and then I went to Pensacola, Florida, and went to an aviation metalsmith school and learned all about aluminum welding. And the next thing I knew, I was on a USS Boise, a cruiser, going to Pearl Harbor, and I was seasick for 7 days on the ship. And when a guy's lying down on the deck, ready to vomit up his whole stomach, some guy comes by and chews on a candy bar and said, "Would you like some?" You know. That's when you want to slap him, but you haven't got the strength. So I got to Pearl Harbor, and I spent 3.5 years at Pearl Harbor.
So, Adolph, I want to start from that morning, December 7th, 1941. I want to go step by step how you felt that what happened that whole entire day.
Yeah. When I woke up that morning, my cousin, Andy Herman, who was a blacksmith in Leapenthal, Kansas, he and I were staying in a barracks outside of the Pearl Harbor gate, and we had both planned on going to the Catholic church in Honolulu. We were both brought up Catholic. And I started up and we started getting dressed, and all of a sudden bullets came through the roof of the building, and in the other room the guys were sitting around at their poker game they had the night before. They were still, some of them still sitting around, and one of the bullets hit the table and all the money splattered all over, so nobody knew who owed what to whom. Anyway, I told Andy, I said, "My God, our men are sure getting careless out there." And the bullets came through the roof, and they came through, and on the floorboard in front by Andy and I we both slept in a huge bed, and the bullets came on the floor, and they came up on our bed railing, and we sat there frozen, you know. And I told Andy, our own airmen out there must be getting awful careless with their shooting. I said, "Andy, let's cancel the church service." I said, "I'm going to have to get back to my Navy base and find out what the hell's going on here." So I got dressed and walked out the front door, and a couple of sailors came back from Honolulu in a Model A Ford with a rumble seat in the back, and they saw me standing there and said, "Get in, Mac, we're at war." Now, they had spent the night in Honolulu and had the morning paper, so they ordered. I thought, what war, you know? And we started heading out towards my Navy base, and all the way out there, the bullet all around the car, not a one hit.
and I'm sitting in the rumble seat in the back with my knees almost up to my chin, and I keep thanking my guardian angel all the time. And when we get to the main gate, usually when you get to the main gate after you come in from a Honolulu shopping trip, the Marine will stop you and search you and see if you have any contraband or anything illegal. But the Marine at the base already knew that we were at war, so everybody knew we were at war but me. And
when you found out that you guys were at war, how were you, like, what was going through your mind?
Well, I just was stunned. I mean, who would attack us with 75 some ships in and around Pearl Harbor? I thought, who would have the audacity to attack us? But Japan had the audacity, and they did attack us. And of course, the rest is history. I was running through the officers' golf course trying to make my way down to my boat landing to catch a boat to go across the Pearl Harbor Channel to my Fort Island Navy Air Base, which was my home. And I started running, and ahead of me a soldier and a Marine ran also, and they did the same thing as I did. Wait till the bullets were all clear on the ground, and then we hugged the palm tree. And
My name is Bruce. My name is I. My name is O. My name is Harry. My name is Fate. My name is Great. My name is Late. Right on time.
we listened to make sure the plane was gone. Then we'd run to the next palm tree. Well, a soldier and a Marine were running ahead of me, and they did the same thing as I did, hugged the palm tree. And finally, when it was clear, I started running, and I saw the bullets come down and behead that soldier. And when I got there, his body is lying on there, bleeding all over the lawn, and his mouth is open, and poor guy, that's it. So I made the sign of the cross and said a prayer for him, because it was Sunday morning, and we were on the way to church.
Adolph Kuhn was born on Monday, September 5th, 1921, around noon to a Volga German family in La Crosse, Kansas. There were 12 children plus Katie and Lauren's mom and dad. Today, Adolph Kuhn is the only surviving member. He sits in front of the crowd in this photo from 1937. Perhaps the most beautiful woman in the world, Elsie Rogers from Ripon, California, met the luckiest man in the world at a party in Frisco on May 20th, 1944. Upon first laying eyes on him, Elsie leaned toward her mother and said, "That's the man I'm going to marry." Naturally, Elsie's mother was incredulous. After the little fishing boat, ironically piloted by a Japanese, was sunk by a Zero fighter, Adolph dog-paddled across the channel alongside swimming torpedoes, falling bombs, wounded battleships, and oil-inflamed water. Crawling up the slime-covered sea ramp, he was able to stand up when perhaps the most famous image of the attack was taken, the explosion of the USS Shaw. Adolph was nearly beheaded by a flying piece of shrapnel the size of a garbage can cover.
We got in the boat and started going across the Pearl Harbor Channel.
After hiding in a nearby hangar under a workbench, Adolph was unpleasantly surprised by a large chemical bomb which tore through the roof. Adolph did not stick around long.
So am I doing it again?
She said Maryland Gardens though. It's Maryland. That's all I'm saying. Let's just
You're right, I get it, but no, we're just gonna.
He's saying just let it run.
Yeah, we're just gonna edit it out. That's all.
I get
But
it.
she didn't even say it right.
No. But she's got to
It's not a thing about if she said it right. We're gonna let it roll so we can edit it so she says it right.
You guys are doing okay.
I understand.
Okay,
She said Maryland.
just do it, please.
No, you're right.
My name is Bruce. My name is I. My name is O. My name is Harry. My name is Heaven. My name is Hell. My name is beautiful. My name is wonderful.
Next, Adolph tried to help clear the runway on Ford Island when he was attacked by a Kate bomber which graciously dropped a bomb near him. To no avail, again the guardian angels worked overtime to protect him that day.
Says, "Excuse me, I'm going aboard the Arizona." And when I got on there, the steel was so hot, my shoe soles were smoking, and I wrap my arms around different posts and what have you to keep from getting burned. And when I got there, there was 3 or 4 guys already totally burned. No eyes, no nothing. Everything is burned off. They're just like that. It's just a corpse of burnt flesh. And I thought that was the only ones on there, and all of a sudden I heard, oh.
So after you crawled out the channel, what happened?
I crawled out of the channel, was all covered in oil. I had oil in my mouth, I had oil in my hair, and all that, and I crawled out of the channel, and just as I set foot on my Fort Island Navy base, the USS Shaw was in the harbor for repairs. The Shaw exploded, and a big chunk of steel about the size of a garbage can lid around one came clear across the Pearl Harbor Channel and touched my right earlobe. Now, mind you, if it had moved over a few inches more, I'd have been beheaded right there. And I dropped down on my knees, and I crawled over in the hangar door and opened up and crawled inside. Now, it's Sunday morning, so I'm thinking I'm the only man in this building now, and it's real quiet inside, and I'm lying there, and the oil's coming out of my mouth, and I'm draining my shoes, and I'm just sick with oil all over me and all that. And all of a sudden, somebody from the far end of the building yelled, "Let's get the hell out of here before she blows," that bomb that came in. And so I inched my way on up to the main entrance. Now, I'm a Kansas farm boy, used to drive in tractors, so the Navy used a little orange Minneapolis Moline tractors that we used to pull our planes in and out. Like I got on that tractor and told somebody to get a cable sling or whatever, and somebody came by and put the sling on it. And you know what a boneyard is? That's the Navy's name for scrap pile, you know. So I'm on this little orange tractor now, and I'm heading down towards the boneyard, and I'm a perfect target now for anything coming. And while I'm coming, bombs are coming down, torpedoes are coming down, machine gun bullets are coming down, and I'm sitting on this tractor, and bullets are hitting the tractor fender and all around me, and I'm sitting there totally unscathed, which I thank my guardian angel and the good Lord. And when I got there, I dropped the plane off, and some of the chunks from the airplanes, the size of a Volkswagen, landed on top of the buildings, they landed on top of the trees, they landed in the water. Then all of a sudden the sky was totally filled with white leaflets that they dropped out of the plane, and they read, "You damned, go to the devil. Listen to the voice of doom. Wake up, blind fools." And those leaflets, I crammed them in my jumper pocket and later on put them in the trunk and sent them back to Kansas.
Interestingly, the night before the attack, Saturday, December 6th, Adolph met his good friend Kellogg at the Battle of Music in Honolulu. Kellogg was stationed on the USS Oklahoma. Adolph promised Kellogg that he would visit him the next day at his ship. After the attack, Adolph found himself inside the barracks looking for clothes to distribute to as many half-dressed sailors and Marines, only to hear someone yell out in the darkness, "Hey, Adolph, is that you?" Lo and behold, there lay Kellogg, severely injured, his arms and legs skinned to the bone. This was the result of a portly chief who poked skinny guys through a porthole, like cordwood. Of the overturned Oklahoma, "There is no use of all of us dying," was the stoic chief's comment. That night, Adolph and his other buddy, Elsa Jera Archibald from Montana, volunteered to warn skittish sailors and Marines on Ford Island to not shoot down any incoming American planes. Both Adolph and Archibald were threatened with bayonet thrusts to the chin and rifles to the chest, under the assumption that the towering Kuhn and his tall comrade Archibald were Japanese spies. Ticked off, Adolph finally blurted out, "Have you ever seen a 6'5" Jap?"
Yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy. The United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked by naval and air forces of the Empire of Japan.
It's not the man or woman who shapes the experience, but the experience that shapes the man or woman, since time immemorial.
You know my name. You know my name. You know my name. You know my name.
So, Mr. Walter, can you tell me about your experiences in the war?
Well, I enlisted in July of 25th of 1942, and I was an aviation cadet, became a pilot of a TBM, went aboard carrier, went into combat. The war was over. I came home.
Well, sound like it went by pretty fast for you. Mr. Walter, can you tell me about your experience when you won the Navy Cross?
Sure. I was flying in a second section. There was 2 sections. Each section is 4 airplanes, and I was in the second 4. And we were attacking the super carrier Amagi in Kure Navy Base on the inland sea of Japan. I had 2,000-pound bomb in my bomb bay. When we approached, there was almost like white, and then everything. All the anti-aircrafts were firing different colors. Everything was red, green, blue, purple, and it was really loaded. But the first section, we ran into a little bit of a overcast. It wasn't solid, but it was scattered. The first section of 4 went under it. We went over it. My leader took us over. The lower section, they made a dive on this Amagi, which is the super carrier. It was the biggest carrier alive at that time. And they got 3 hits, and 1 guy was shot down, killed. We dove down. My section leader got hit, but it didn't knock him down, but it knocked out his pressure, so he couldn't open his bomb bay doors. And I went down, and I got a hit. The guy that went down before me, his name was Newton, he was shot down. Then my wingman went down, and he didn't get a hit. So out of the 8 people, we got 4 hits, and it sunk. However, it didn't sink out of sight because it drew more water than what the water was there. So the Navy said I did the material damage rather than sinking it. And I might add also that that ship is the one that saved Japan after the war, because they needed steel to build Toyotas, and they towed that to a shipbuilding and cut it up, and that steel went to build Toyotas.
So, Mr. Walter, do you have any advice to the newer generation, us coming up, any advice that you would like to give to us?
No, I don't have any advice. I'm not that smart.
So, as you look back over your life, do you have any regrets?
Not one bit.
Not one. You wouldn't take anything back.
From what I went through, there can't be anything any worse than what I went through.
No, that's right.
Huh?
No,
Well,
finish. You can keep going.
I was the first one in my family to join the military. I was the first one in my family to go overseas. I was the first one in my family who went through 19 close calls in the war.
And did your family support you through all this? Were they proud of you?
Oh, they were, with their letters and what have you, and telephone calls and all that. And I went through 19 close calls and came through totally unscathed. And I saw other sailors get their heads blown off and their bodies all shot up and bleeding in the lawns and the grass. And I saw the first plane come in, and I saw the last plane come in, and I saw us drinking swimming pool water for 3 days, and I saw us eating our meals cooked in swimming pool water. And other than that, I had a pretty exciting life.
Okay, so let's talk about your spirituality. Do you have any guardian angels, or you believed in that?
Oh, my guardian angel is with me every day, and I pray for the good Lord, to the good Lord and the guardian angel for me being here to...
Here where you are today.
That's right, yeah. I have no regrets. And a lot of people ask me if I have any animosity towards the Japanese people. I said not one bit then, and I still don't have today. Now, if the tide was turned and they would have told us, and I was in naval aviation, if they told us get in your planes and fly to so-and-so place and drop a bomb on so-so, like they did with the Japs, and they only did their job. If they hadn't have done that, they'd been in the brig, you know. So I never had any animosity. Those poor guys, they did what they had to do. If they would have refused their orders, well, their life would be over with. So next.
What advice would you give to new young men and women joining the military today?
Who do you want to answer?
You can go first.
Well, the advice I would give is to always be honest, always tell the truth, because the lies are going to catch up with you. And so you might as well tell the truth and tell it exactly like it happened, and not make up any stories for the newspapers or magazines. Amen.
And what would you have to say?
Be happy, obey all the orders, and I guess that's it.
Thank you.
Howdy.
Water.
Just putting it in a view. As Steve Jobs once said, your work is going to fill a large part of your life, and the only way to truly be satisfied is to do what you believe is great work. And the only way to do great work is to love what you do. If you haven't found it yet, keep looking. Don't settle. Thank you, Mr. Jobs. After all, the journey is the reward. Or to paraphrase Mr. Adolph Kuhn, we have no regrets.
My name is heaven. My name is hell. My name is good. My name is bad. My name is beautiful. My name is wonderful. My name is destiny. Ecstasy. You know my name. You know my name. You know my name. My name is love. My name is love. All the above. My name is love. Sent from above. My name is blue.
Action.
So, Mr. Kuhn, tell me about your wife, Alice Rogers.
Oh,
Do it again.
Okay.
Good? Yeah, it's beautiful.
Really?
Favorite Christmas.
Wow.
Make sure this thing is on. That is going to be...
Miss Walton, are you nervous about next week interviewing a true American hero?
Yeah.
A little bit?
Yeah.
That's okay. That's okay. You'll do fine.
I'm not nervous, but then again, I don't have to interview him, so, right?
No, not at all.
So,
And Miss Zavala, where's your sketch pad today?
In here.
Oh, okay. Good answer. Oh my God! I just kicked the.
Oh, you heard me say it was cold?
Okay, so let's just go ahead. Here we go. Ready? 3, 2, 1.
Hello, I'm Alyssa Walton from Canyon Ridge High School, here with the... sorry.
Blooper.
Sorry. Here with the hero of Pearl Harbor, Mr. Adolph.
Here with the hero.
I'm gonna record this.
That's fine. Okay, Miss Walton.
Hello, I'm Alyssa Walton from Canyon Ridge High School, here with the hero of Pearl Harbor, Mr. Adolph Kuhn. Hello, nice to meet you. So, sorry.
That was really beautiful. If I can just make input real quick, that was beautiful.
Go ahead, what's your input?
What's your input?
It was
Oh, that
beautiful.
was that.
It was. I'm saying that was a good take.
To new recruits today.
What advice would what?